If you went to school in the last few decades, then you probably remember a time when police officers came to your classroom bearing lion merch and talking about the dangers of drugs and peer pressure. While this might feel like a collective fever dream we all had, the Drug Resistance and Abuse Education program was taught in the majority of classrooms across the United States. But was this program effective, and where are they today? The D.A.R.E program was developed all the way back in 1983 as a collaboration between the Los Angeles School District and Police Department. The idea was simple: bring police officers into a classroom to boost the self-esteem of students so they can resist the temptation of drugs, as the LA Times put it in a piece about the program. While it was initially a local program, it soon caught on to neighboring districts, and by 1986, it had gained national recognition. Politicians on both sides of the aisle latched onto the D.A.R.E program as an easy way to portray themselves as anti-drug, pro-kids, and pro-law enforcement. This led to federal funding in 1986 with the passing of the Drugs-Free Schools and Communities Act, which mentions D.A.R.E by name. In 1988, President Ronald Reagan even declared the first National D.A.R.E Day. This program drew widespread praise and public support, and by 2002, the D.A.R.E program was taught in more than 75% of schools across the United States and had a budget of over $10 million. The main classroom curriculum consisted mainly of straightforward lectures from police officers about the dangerous consequences of doing drugs, how to avoid peer pressure, and how to build self-esteem. This program was also opposed to things like graffiti and tattoos, as those things were seen as succumbing to peer pressure. Many of their lessons were adapted from SMART, another anti-drug program that had been developed by the University of Southern California that was supposed to be taught by educators instead of police officers. The officers were encouraged to portray a friendly and approachable attitude towards the students, oftentimes talking to them during recess. They even brought toys and trinkets called kudos to give away during lectures as prizes to kids who answered questions correctly, usually featuring their mascot, D.A.R.E the Lion. Most lectures concluded with question and answer segments to get more kids engaged and to build a more personal relationship with the officer. The officers would even sometimes arrive in a sports car with D.A.R.E branding on it, oftentimes confiscated from drug dealers to show the consequences of doing drugs and losing valuable items. While the curriculum and small details did change over time, the core message remained the same. How well did these lessons work? Starting in the early 90s, D.A.R.E began to gradually receive more and more backlash. Despite its widespread integrations and its budget, the results were lackluster at best. One study conducted by RTI International in 1994 concluded, D.A.R.E imparts a large amount of information, but has little or no impact on students' drug use. Of course, D.A.R.E was eager to stifle these findings, sinking tens of thousands of dollars into suppressing the report and starting legal proceedings to squelch the study. Despite their best efforts to foster a positive impression on students, studies show the opposite. A report by the California Department of Education concluded, California's drug education programs, D.A.R.E being the largest of them, simply doesn't work. More than 40% of the students told researchers that they were not at all influenced by drug educators or programs. Nearly 70% reported neutral to negative feelings about those delivering the anti-drug message, while only 10% of elementary students responded to the drug education negatively or indifferently. This figure grew to 33% of middle school students and topped 90% at the high school level. A 1998 National Institute of Justice report showed that not only did graduates not have a decreased likelihood of using substances, they actually had an increased likelihood of using drugs, smoking tobacco, and using illicit substances. The evidence suggested that showing young, impressionable children drugs, it was actually, in fact, encouraging and nurturing drug use within those children. Dozens of other studies across the country echoed these sentiments. In 2001, David Satcher, the then Attorney General, placed D.A.R.E in the category of ineffective primary prevention programs, following numerous scathing studies into the program. In addition to its general ineffectiveness, the curriculum and the tactics used were the target of a great deal of criticism. D.A.R.E strictly adhered to the no-tolerance drug policy that was held and propagated by numerous politicians. This policy, much like abstinence-only sex education, proved to do more harm than good. Many groups that advocated for decriminalization or harm reduction education spoke out against the D.A.R.E program. D.A.R.E also drew criticism regarding their use of child informants. On many of the worksheets that students were asked to fill out, questions were asked regarding whether or not a child had seen drug use or drug paraphernalia in their own home. Officers also encouraged the use of a D.A.R.E box, where under the pretenses of anonymity, students could report drug use that they've seen in their own home. D.A.R.E officers were also instructed to be on the lookout for drug use in the homes of the students, because they are, first and foremost, police officers. D.A.R.E largely dismissed the criticism in studies, labeling them biased, misleading, or altogether false. However, following the losses of federal funding, D.A.R.E instituted a massive overhaul over its curriculum. Starting in 2009, D.A.R.E adapted the Keeping It Real program. The program no longer explicitly teaches an anti-drug message, instead focusing on good decision making. However, the efficacy of this program is even in question, with the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Administration rating its readiness for dissemination at 1.5 out of 4. While the program may have been developed with good intentions, the product was overwhelmingly ineffective at best and damaging at worst. The misguided program of the 90s and the 2000s is largely a thing of the past. The politicians that supported and reinforced evil drug narratives are gradually being replaced with ones that have more common sense policies. Though the damage has already been done, we can don our ironic D.A.R.E shirts and step forward into a brighter generation. Sorry we let you down, Darren. Please like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you in the future.